Hello friends, thank you so much for joining me today. This is my first speaking I'm doing today outside of what I've said to the cats. I'm not really feeling very good. I promptly caught Belle's cold that she was sick with on Sunday. She seemed to rebound pretty quick, so hopefully I do too. But my nose is very runny. I've already repaired my nose concealer like one time, but this is just how it goes. I shoot videos in the morning. Who knows how I'd be feeling by afternoon or tomorrow? I'm not sure, so I'm gonna roll on with the plan. But my friends, I am very excited to talk about this palette because this has been so much fun for me. It's the new Natasha Denona Eye Sculpt Texture and Tone palette, and they have two designs, two variations on this, and I went with the dramatic one. And look, it's just full of rich tones. There's a lot of rich brown in here, so if you're not all about brown tones, it's the majority of what's happening. Even like some of the more rosy toned browns still give brown, you know, and then you've got some darkness here on the end. Another big observation I've had with this one is how even if you don't use this end row, if you stay here or even with these, you can still get a really rich and intense look. So it's basically mattes up here, mattes down here, and you got your row of shimmers, and some are a little more like dim shimmers, deeper shimmers, a little bit less like popping off, but these are very shiny and fun. And I know I made a big deal about this in the first video, but that soft close magnetic closure is, it just has my heart. So if you looked at that and you felt like you love those tones, but you feel a little lost on how to use it, she does have this really nice outline that comes with the palette, and it says like, these are the various shades you could use in your crease, or these shades, and then like, these are good lid colors. These are good like lash line or outer corner colors. See how it's all kind of mapped out there for you, if that's helpful. And then on the back, this is the entire palette, just showing you how if you look vertically, you do have easy trios of shades that keep you all in the same color family. Like these say peach warm, yellow golden, rosy pink, and so on. So that might give you some guidance as well. I like when brands come out with something that kind of lets you get in the head of the palette's designer and see like, what was the intention with this? So I'm going to use that today. First, I'll let you know what's on my face. I always like to do this because if I don't do it, somebody will ask. And I gotta wipe my nose. I might just have to settle with being a little red on that nostril. But what's on my face today, I primed with my Milani Conceal and Perfect. This is the Blur Out Smoothing Primer, and I've really enjoyed this with a number of different foundations. I'm trying yet another new combo today. So it's that with the e.l.f. Halo Glow Skin Tint on top. This has the SPF 50, and my shade is 6 Light Cool. So I've got that on all over. I do enjoy this product. You definitely want to shake it up. You can hear that there's like something getting it mixed in there, but it's lightweight, it's pretty coverage. And then I went with a light concealer today just because I knew I would probably be breaking things down and then maybe needing to recorrect. So I used my True Match Serum Concealer. It's very light. It does still give coverage, not as full as a Shape Tape, but it's like a lightweight concealer that if you did need to go back and add more, it really doesn't look heavy. And then I set my under eyes with the Maybelline Fit Me in Fair and went all over the rest of my face with the e.l.f. Halo Glow Powder Filter in Light Neutral. And then I just went super easy for all my other face steps, y'all. I did my Swan palette from Hourglass, and I used today the bronzer. I used this blush, which is the one called Mauve Fusion over here. And then I did the highlighter and I did the dim light all over everything. I love going over top with dim light, although I do think I need maybe a little more blush today. I'm gonna go for more of this. Yeah, it's a little more. I love the blushes that were included in here, and sometimes I'll take like that one in the middle. It looks a little softer, but it contributes like a pretty warmth when you just hit the apples of the cheeks. Life-giving. And then I did my brows today. Like I said, I've gone through my Morphe Nano pencil in Java. So I've got my Precisely My Brow Pencil from Benefit in shade 4, and then I still have my Morphe Gripping Brow Gel, the Micromanager Gripping, which I like this a lot. I like how the brush can get in there without loading you up. Just really good hold. Love that. Next step would be to add in some eye primer. So this is Milani. And another thing I'm going to discuss before the video's over is an alternative palette. I won't say dupe. It's not duping the entirety of this Natasha Denona palette, but it definitely is an option if a rich chocolatey brown eye look is something that you're craving. It's definitely a palette I also love and I've had for quite a while. I would say at least a couple of years now, maybe more. Okay, Milani eye primer on. We're gonna open up this palette, and gosh, I feel like I've used this a lot prior to, you know, actually shooting this video. So I'll pop up some of the different looks that I have done. I feel like you can get some really nice everyday looks, you know, that aren't all that dark. Like if you just kind of isolate certain little parts of the palette, like that looks like a pretty standard look, like right there, maybe those top 6. But you can get deeper and deeper. You can use these shades like kind of like liner, like outer corner shades. For the last 2 days, I've really dug into this row more because I didn't want to talk about this palette without using like the absolute blackest. And even just in the outer corner with a lot of glow on the lid, like I loved the way that worked in. One thing I will say, like the C3 and the C1, I've used a little bit of the C2 as well, and that looks so like starry and pretty. I feel like I haven't given this one a chance to work in a super full-on concentrated way on my eyes yet. But as far as those go, this is kind of hard to explain, but it's gonna be tempting to go in with the absolute bare minimum of those really dark shades and think, I've just gotta stay in this super duper light place with it, right? Because they're so rich and intense. However, when you get too little on, that just kind of sticks in place on your eye and it doesn't really have the movement that you need it to have to get super blended. So use enough of those shades, even if you're a little intimidated by it, because you have to have enough going on there to blend. I might pull in a little C1 today to explain that better. But what I'm first gonna do is, I think I'm gonna look at W1 right here at the top. So this is one of the softer browns, and just get some of that with my crease brush. And I'm gonna start working this into my crease. But does anybody else like a rich shadow look day to day? I just love kind of following the seasons. I like feeling like, okay, we're getting into fall. Let's have some more dramatic eyes, you know, like let's have some bolder lips. I love that feeling, you know, fall and winter and the type of makeup that I feel it calls for. I really enjoy that feeling. So we're just going back and forth into the crease. You can see this really has the potential to lay down a good amount of color. I'm not only hitting crease, but I'm going above. Yes. See? Like that. We'll get that more blended in a second, but again, it's W1, tap in. I do feel like these shadows have had super good staying power. Day to day, I feel like my looks pretty much stay looking exactly the same by day's end. There's a lot of pigment happening here. Not saying you can't get high pigment palettes from lower cost brands. We know that you can, but I wouldn't say this palette is worthwhile if you only occasionally like to get dramatic with your eyeshadow. You know what I mean? Because it's pricey. We know this about Natasha Denona. This palette's $82. There is a lighter version, but that one still has a lot of richness in it, honestly. But there I am just like kind of buffing that shade till it won't buff anymore. This one needs just a little more color to match up to the other. And then there's not like a really bold light highlighting shade, but I find myself going to Y1 right here, this kind of yellowy shade. And I do like the look of this on the border. It really does kind of show itself even in light sheer ways, but she can be so sheared out and looks really pretty, kind of helping out some of these darker colors on the edge. Just really easy, a tiny bit of color. That one seems pretty soft when I tap in. Okay, if I were just in full-on let's play with this palette mode, I might skip around to like a couple other shades that were somewhere between here and here just to play. But I also want to simplify this a little bit more and make it something that feels somewhat manageable to follow as a tutorial. So let's just stick with the fact that that was step 1 and that was step 2. Step 3, we're going to go all the way over here to a deep shade because I want to kind of explain to you how that works, because these are very, very dark shades. C3, we're talking pure black, and here we're talking near black, dark brown. So I'm using my Morphe M303 and I'm getting a little bit of that product on my eyes. And like I said, it's easy to feel intimidated by that type of shade because you're just thinking, oh, it's so dark, I will hardly use any of it. Well, use enough so that you feel like you can actually blend it, you know? Because that was my own error when I first got into that row. There's a lot of high pigment, but it can kind of want to stick. But, you know, I do a little tap, tap, double tap, tap off excess, and then you're pretty good for an outer corner of that shade. We're tapping. One thing I have not experienced one time with this palette is fallout. You know, I've used those glimmery shades, I've patted them on with brushes, I've patted them on with my fingers. I do not have fallout. When I start my look, I do not have fallout develop during the day. they are adhering. Part of that might be Milani eyeshadow primer, but part of it might just be the way these are formulated. But see how we're tapping in, and this brush, that little bit of fluff toward the tip of this brush, the fact that it's not pancake flat, the tip of the brush works it into the crease for you. You might not even realize it's happening, and then you're like, oh, that shade's in the crease. So there's our richest color. And then I would pick something that's in between what we first put in the crease and what we just did to kind of help haze out a little bit with a smaller brush. This is my Profusion small pointed brush. Just try to hold it so you can tell the size. I'm gonna go to, let's use P3 down here, okay? This warmth. What I'm going to do is first take my brush to my crease with that shade so it does feel like it's overlapping some of the darkest color, and then kind of swirl it up so we get this slightly lightened haze, but it's still a pretty intense color. Okay, I might continue to blend that a little bit more, but can you see the difference? This eye, outer corner, this eye, outer corner. It really does something for your lift. So again, it's P3 that I'm using right now. Here. Overlapping the crease, what was put there with the darkest shade, and then kind of circular motions up and out. I'm not dropping down below this imaginary line. See that? It's so easy. Thoughtful layering of shades. It's fun. I really love working with this palette. I've enjoyed pulling in like this R1 row here, R1, R2, R3, those rosy shades. You really can use that pattern approach that's laid out on the card and feel like that's totally working for you. I'm going to take a bare brush now, and I'm going to just buff a little bit on the edge of what I just did there. Something I love when I'm doing a warm shadow look is having something really cool and dark on my outer corner of my lid. It really gives you that sunset vibe, like the sun is coming down, but everything on the horizon kind of looks just black. There was a name for that, and I learned it in high school. I think it was called the Purkinje shift, and things at a certain time of day kind of look like just dark silhouettes. And so you're getting that with your darkness, but then the warmth still radiating out from the horizon line just a little bit. Now, what do you want to do with the lid? You could stay matte and like a little bit light to medium if you wanted to, or bring in some of the shimmer. I really like this R2 color kind of coming inward from the darkness. See how it's like a dirty penny kind of shade there? It's really pretty. I like that hitting like mid lid, and then maybe one of the brighter shimmers coming inward. Similarly, you could use this sort of deep taupey brown in that same way, like it's coming in. Those are such pretty colors. Ugh. Using my Morphe M302, so it's a little smaller than the first one that we used on the outer corner, R2. We're going to dab this on the center of the lid and feel it overlap that darkest brown. And this is a pretty shade. Gosh, this would be a nice one shadow look. Ooh, I want to try that with this shade or that other N2 that I pointed out there. They could pull it off. They could go to the crease and give you some contrast there, but they could also kind of pop on the lid in a smoky kind of sultry way, but we just dab it. Bub's coming down with the same thing too, like at the same exact time. He texted me the other day, I think I'm getting it, and I'm like, I think I'm getting it too. Okay, see that haze we now have on most of the lid? Clean off your brush, doesn't have to be fancy. And then I think I'm gonna go with Y2 for a little brightness right here, that soft gold. And you can use your finger or you can use a brush. You can see the brush will do the job for you. Really pretty shimmer, not something that's gonna flake away and fall down on your cheeks. Even though I'm working in a very small surface area, I do feel myself giving like a little swipe down, almost to press that shimmer down a little bit, as opposed to just a straight pat, 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 pat. Is it a little crackling bonfire there on my eyes? I love that. What I don't love is the bare space in this eyebrow. Lower lash line, I'm going to use this palette because I just want you to see the most of what it can do, you know, not pulling in too many extras. I'm going to go to N1. It's a true dark brown right there. And I'm going to take that like on my outer part of my lower lash line. And I'm actually not too worried about that drifting. These shadows seem to go on and kind of stick, if you know what I mean. Have you noticed that about other Natasha Denona eyeshadows you have? They really are good about staying power. I think it's the high pigment and just whatever she's got going on in the formula. It does not lend itself to flaking away and just kind of falling away or fading. I'm going to do a light bit of lash today. I've got these lashes I wanted to tell you about. They're very delicate seeming, but there is some length to them. They're naked lashes from Ardell style 423. They come in packaging like this. So what I'm going to do is black liquid liner across the top. It's going to be Milani Stay Put Tank. I'm going to do mascara top and bottom and then pop these on, and I'll show you how the look ends up. But that is my shadow, and we'll also talk about that alternative palette. Alrighty friends, here's that finished look. I love the way the eyes turned out. So all I added, like I said, I was putting on this liner, Milani Stay Put Tank, black liquid liner across the top because I had the intention of putting on the false lash. And you just want to have that base where the lashes can kind of sit on it and disappear into it. The band of them can. And then I put on the Catrice Pure False Lash Beyond Black mascara on top and the e.l.f. lash extender on the lower lashes. And then these lashes from Ardell, these Naked Lashes 423, they're a really nice lash on these looks where it's like you've really got depth on the outer corner and lid and it's hazing out. They so gently haze outward as well. They're kind of soft, but there's a beautiful length going on there. And I just really enjoyed those. I wanted you to see those if you were looking for a more glam take on things. Obviously you don't have to do that. I still have some glue I can see drying over here. By the way, I use my Ioni glue from Dollar Tree. Love that stuff. Does not irritate my eyes whatsoever. I default to Ardell Wispies a lot, but those are definitely thicker than these. These give length, but that lightness that looks so pretty, you know, hazing out from the eye. And by the way, on this eye look, I wasn't really looking to reinvent the wheel on eye application, obviously. I was just wanting to really showcase how the different types of shades in this palette would work, how the crease colors go on, how a really dark shade goes on, what the shimmer is going to look like, the intensity of that. I wasn't trying to map out a totally different eye look. You know, I can do something different sometime, but this is the way I like my eyeshadow best, and I just wanted you to see what the palette can truly do. So a lot of times if it's a review type of video, I'm going to take you through some solid like kind of A, B, C, D types of steps so you can see how those shadows execute in some very basic everyday types of ways. Anyway, just adore the way the eye look came together. On my lips, I went with like a cool brown lip liner. This is Rimmel Lasting Finish in Cappuccino, and then something on top that just brought a little more life out. This is one of the new e.l.f. Plumping Glow Reviver lip oils in the shade Papaya Razzi. And I actually tried on all of these on a short video, and I love the thickness, the sheen. They feel, you know, like they're a little bit thicker on your lips than just a regular e.l.f. lip oil, and I like that. And there is kind of a tingle, but it's not painful. And I just had to wipe my nose. I wonder how much I can correct it with like this e.l.f. powder. Just use a little brush. Yeah, that helps a little bit. But anyway, friends, as far as this palette goes, I absolutely love it. It really suits my preferences. I love rich neutrals, and it's speaking to that wholeheartedly. I love the rich browns. I like creating looks that have warmth plus rich darkness. But you got to be honest with yourself and think about how frequently you like a look like that, because as a pricey palette, it's a lot to pay for something you might only pick up occasionally. And I really feel like I'm going to love this for fall and winter. But here's an idea, my friends, and you might already have this on hand, but the Juvia's Place The Coffee Shop palette. I mentioned this kind of in passing, probably in the video where I hauled that palette. I think I talked about the fact that it made me think of this, and look at all the super rich darkness. Now it's more haphazard the way they've put it in here, right? Everything's just kind of scrambled up. But look how we have a black, we have a near black, we have cooler browns, we have warmer browns, we have copper and like kind of dirty gold, we have taupes in the shimmers. One thing they're giving you in here that you don't get in the Natasha Denona is a nice like light cream, but there's very high pigment in Juvia's Place eyeshadows. If you've never experienced these, this is a brand sold through Ulta, and they can really go there. And I feel like for the type of look I did today, like, I don't know, you might not get the exact same shimmer on the lid, but you could really set it up the same way with this palette. And you know, who needs to have the exact same look I have? You could play around with this if you're just thinking, I want something that's going to give me the opportunity to have dark brown richness plus some of that hazy warmth. It's in here. The thing this is lacking that this one has, the Natasha Denona palette does get into like the kind of rosy browns in here, and this one really doesn't go there in any sense. It does give you a little bit more in terms of cooler taupe types of shades. Boom, 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 boom. It's going cooler a little bit more, but it doesn't splash into the rosy like this one does. But in terms of just dark brown, medium brown, softer brown, warm brown. It's got a lot of those bases covered. So shout out to that palette. It might not occur to you right away because, like I said, the colors are just so scrambled here, but I immediately thought of that one when I got this one home. And while I really appreciate that Natasha Denona palette, I love the quality of her shadow, the staying power, the way they apply and all that. Truth be told, and you guys know this, there are probably a handful of palettes that we all may have in our collections that do offer rich browns, that do offer warm browns, that do have some kind of splash of shimmer. So I guess my point is I love that palette, but don't feel left out or feel like you're totally missing out or could never recreate a similar look, because you could. I really like it for what it is. I think it's a very advanced formula. I think the fact that it can stay all day, even the shimmers looking exactly the same as the start of the day, like there's something to be said for that. But if we're just talking about getting the look, like I could continue to dig deep into my collection and I'm sure I could find even more alternatives. But that Juvia's Place one has got to be one of the closest. So thank you guys so much for your time today. I hope this video was helpful to you. Let me know if you've got the other version of the Natasha Denona palette. How's that working out for you? Or if you have the same one I'm talking about today, what kinds of shades do you like to use? What types of looks do you enjoy putting together? We can talk about it in the comments, but I'll see you guys again very soon. Thank you so much for your time. I love you. Bye.